Okay, so the Libin Cardiovascular Institute is an institute at the confluence between research and education and clinical care. The Libin Institute has several programs, and some of them are more towards, women cardiovascular. So CV&Me is a leading program looking to transform the future of women's health, cardiovascular health, and through health research, training, and care. We have the P2, which is the Person to Population Cardiovascular Research Collaborative, which is a multidisciplinary platform for fostering research on precision population cardiovascular health with the goals to to increase awareness about the impact of social determinant of health, enhance personalized care, and improve collaboration among scientists in Alberta. We also have a clinical branch, which is mainly led by the Stevenson Cardiac Imaging Center. And this is one of the leading clinical research and teaching programs focused in the field of personalized cardiovascular care and delivery. And finally, we have a data initiative, which is designed to improve patient outcomes by integrating cardiovascular data for use in clinical decision making and research. We'll be starting this evening by acknowledging the land on which we all stand. So here we are joining you from Calgary, and I would like to acknowledge that the University of Calgary is located on the traditional territory of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Dakota First Nation. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. And I would like also to note that the University of Calgary is situated on the land adjacent to where the Bow River meets the Elbow River, and that the traditional Blackfoot name of this place is Moketse, which we now call the city of Calgary. As I said previously, don't feel pressure to enable your camera. Please remain on mute and hold on your questions until the end of this event. This event is recorded, so we'll hope that we'll all be able to review the slides after. So this event is also brought to you as part of the Libin Moves initiative, which is an initiative that reflects the latest science on the Canadian 24-hour movement guidelines. We offer free classes and resources that are available on our website. You can take a look at that. So it's libinmoves.ca. And we would like to encourage you all who are attending to take part. And the goal is to help each and everyone who's hearing about this message reach the 150 minutes of moderate to strenuous physical activity each week for optimal cardiovascular health. So I hope that you can join us. And we have some upcoming Libin Moves events. So on April 7th, you can join us for another lecture on World Health Day, focused on sleep, stress, and exercise. On May 5th, we have also another lecture coming, and it's about hearts and mind, and taking care of your mental health for heart disease patients. So a lot of things are coming your way. So please visit our website to be kept abreast of all that's going on. So tonight, we have the pleasure of being joined by 4 talented women in their own right, so registered dietitians. So it's our pleasure to introduce Dr. Tanis Fenton. So Tanis is a registered dietitian and professor at the University of Calgary, and her primary academic focus is on the growth of preterm infants. She supports investigation into nutrition support for hospitalized patients and popular nutrition needs. We also have the privilege to have Lindsay Sue, who is a former bariatric dietitian turned certified intuitive eating counselor and a body liberation advocate. She is the author of the Mindful Eating Workbook, which are simple practices for nurturing a positive relationship with food. and she's also the Community and Content Associate for Food Psych Program Inc. We are also joined by Jessica Williams, who's a registered dietitian, professional kinesiologist, and street athlete. She unintentionally underrated herself as an athlete for over years and did not know it. Once she started eating enough and strength training properly, she was able to become faster and stronger. Her goal is to help athletes of all ages improve their sport performance without giving up on their favorite food and spending hours at the gym. So finally, we also have Lalitha Taylor. So Lalitha is a University of Calgary alumni and an award-winning dietitian. She's based in Edmonton, Alberta, and she's been a practicing dietitian for 16 years. She has a diverse dietetic background with dynamic communication skills, which have allowed her to engage in various media outlets, including her former role as the national spokesperson for Dietitians Canada. And she's currently the nutritionist and columnist for CBC Edmonton Radio. So please help me in welcoming these amazing women. And so I assume that you are on, you already have your camera on. I'm going to just pause the sharing so that you can see them. So do you mind waving? So Vinci, Lalitha, Jessica, and Tanis. So for everybody else, I will ask that you keep your video off so that we can have our attention on the diet tonight. Okay. So welcome. So we'll get started right away with the first theme. So tonight we're gonna be addressing 4 themes. These themes are emotional eating and craving, the latest diet trends, pandemic weight gain and best weight, food for energy and well-being. And this theme were devised based on the question that you all submitted. So we hope that through this evening, we'll be able to address some of your pressing questions. And as I said, I'm going to earlier, please hold on your question until the end, and we'll give you further instruction once at the end of the evening. Okay, so let's go get started right away. So the first question is for Lalitha. So Lalitha, the audience wants to know, how do I deal with pandemic weight gain? So Lalitha, you're on mute.
I just realized that. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here with all of you this evening. And in keeping with the theme of the Fireside Chat, I'm just going to invite my colleagues, Jessica, Tanis, and Vinci to also chime in because I really want this to be meaningful. I want us to have a conversation tonight, and I don't want this to be overly formal. So I think pandemic weight gain has been on a lot of people's minds lately, and it's a question that I get often from my clients. How do I deal with this? And the first piece of advice that I would give is, first of all, let's be compassionate with each other. I think this is a really challenging time that we're all going through with a lot of unknowns. I know personally for myself, I'm dealing with a parent who was recently diagnosed with cancer, and that's made it really challenging with COVID, right? So I think above everything else, we need to be compassionate with when it comes to dealing with our health right now. Now, the second thing that I would say is be reflective on how you're eating. So be curious about your eating pattern. So are you managing to fuel yourself or feed yourself at regular intervals during the day? Now, it's interesting, people respond differently with stress. Some people eat more and some people don't eat at all. So I think the very first thing to think about is eating to manage that body hunger, which for most people looks like eating every 3 to 5 hours throughout the day. This allows us to get exposure to some of those nutrients that also not only give us vitamins and minerals, but also provide us with protein and fiber that makes us feel fuller longer. The third thing that I would encourage everybody to think about is be reflective, not just of your physical health, but of your mental health. Everything works in synergy together. So, are you doing things to help manage your stress? So, again, there's so many things that influence our food decisions regarding what we eat. And so, if your stress is not being managed properly, chances are other things like your sleep, maybe your activity, maybe what's influencing your food decisions might be off kilter as well. So I know for me, walking has become my go-to during this pandemic. I don't have access to my gym, but it's an opportunity for me to connect with nature and get some fresh air. So thinking about maybe engaging in that physical activity, if you know that's something that can offset that stress or anxiety for you and bring about more of a mental wellness. Another thing to think about also is, as I mentioned before, be curious about your eating. So I use the word compassion. And I say that because oftentimes we're so self-deprecating towards ourselves. And we talk to ourselves like we would never talk to maybe a loved one, right? So always remember the way that you talk to yourself is how you should be talking to your daughter or how you should be talking to your mom. So it should be out of love. So take a moment to be curious about why you're eating. So ask yourself, what am I feeling in this moment? Is eating food, is that going to make me feel better? And I want to be clear about something. Eating out of comfort is okay. I think we get shamed into thinking that we can't eat out of comfort, but food is meant to soothe us. And I know as a child, food has soothed me in university and even now during this pandemic. So I think I just want to make that point very clear. It's okay to eat out of comfort. I think what can happen is if that's becoming your only means of dealing with your emotions, we maybe want to seek other strategies for dealing with maybe stress or anxiety. And this is also where maybe seeking the help of a psychologist can come into play or a registered dietitian like Vinci, for example. I also want to be very clear about something too. So when we're thinking about our weight, a lot of people are like, okay, well, if I'm being compassionate about myself and I'm not focusing on my weight, does that mean I'm not focusing on my health? And I would say that when we think about weight in general, I always try to shift the focus away from weight. And I don't know if my other colleagues want to chime in and maybe add their 2 cents regarding that. Nobody right now? Okay. um,
That's a good point, Lalita. I think we want to come back to weight, but before we move on, can we just I just want us to pause a little bit around that emotional eating piece, because as you said, many of us are stressed, many of us are feeling the brunt of the lack of other activities, recreational activity, and we're stuck home, and we have the fridge right there, we have the pantry right there. So, Vinci, I just wanted to have Vinci chime in here. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that emotional stress, boredom eating during the pandemic, and how do we deal with that? Do you have some tips and strategies that people can deal with? And we'll come back to the weight, Lalita, in a few
okay, sounds great.
rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think my answer is probably going to piggyback on a lot of what Lalitha has already shared. Um, Especially with the idea of that it is okay to eat for reasons outside of physical hunger. Because I think a very popular analogy that we hear about food is that, food is to our bodies as fuel is to a car. And in a lot of ways that is true, but I also think that that it's incomplete, because I think we all have the experience of food being a source of comfort, or food as a way to connect to our own culture or to other people, or food as a way to celebrate. But because we have this idea that, food is sort of like fuel, like it would be for a car, we tend to pathologize anything that we feel is either more than or like not what our bodies need. And then we sort of call that emotional eating. And we sort of think of that, oh, I'm not supposed to eat emotionally. Like I'm only supposed to eat, when I feel hungry. And if I eat more than that, that's bad. And that's, not good for my health. But the reality is, I actually think that all of our eating has an emotional component to it. And I say that because when you think about even like if food wasn't emotional at all, we would have like invented some, I don't know, like flavorless shake at some point, and that's what we would be like eating. But we all have our favorite foods. When we're just sitting down for a meal, like I think there are foods that make us feel more satisfied or more enjoyable. So even when we're eating for reasons for physical hunger, I think often there is an emotional component to it as well. So I say this because a lot of the times people ask me, well, how do I stop eating emotionally? Or how do I have more willpower to avoid treats? I think that's one of the other questions that I'll be answering tonight. But so my answer to that is, we technically can't stop emotional eating, but it's kind of similar to what Lalitha said. Maybe if you're noticing that you're having that food is maybe the only way that you are dealing with uncomfortable emotions, that we can look at other options for managing those emotions. I don't know if I have a bit more time to elaborate, or how are we doing?
Yeah, no, it's great. We'll come back and dig in a little bit deeper into this topic of eating and our emotions. But you just said something really important, like coping mechanism, right? So food cannot be your only coping mechanism. You have to look at other ways. I just wanted to bring also Tanis on the subject, but before I bring Tanis, I wanted to hear from Jessica. So Jessica, we're talking about emotional eating. We are talking about listening to our bodies. We are talking about listening to what we need. So when it comes to energy, and making sure that what we are eating is feeding us well, do you have anything, any tips, any strategy, any suggestions for folks out there?
Yeah, so really, I guess what Lalitha and Vinci had just said, really kind of being curious about what you're doing right now. And if you are kind of like looking for areas of improvement, kind of looking with curiosity, we're kind of all coming from a no judgment space about like what's on your plate. And so is there protein on your plate? Is there vegetables? Do you have a fruit to go with it? Like, do you have some starch as well too, some carbs? We kind of want all the variety of foods to be kind of at your meals and your snacks. You're getting all the, like Lalitha said, all the nutrients that you do need to really kind of optimize your health. Really, we need carbs for energy, we need protein for our muscles, we need vegetables and fruit for our vitamins and minerals, but also a healthy gut for our fiber. And so really it's just trying to kind of make sure you have all the different food groups in there. We have 3 food groups from the new Canada's food guide anyway. So it's vegetables and fruit, protein and starch. If you're wondering where the milk group went, it just got lumped into the protein section. So that's kind of where that came from. But one thing that I want to kind of caution people on is when they think of optimizing, like what they can do to make sure they're getting everything in, is their first thought is always a supplement. But we can get all the vitamins and minerals that we do need from food. And there's actually some harms in taking supplements. They're not as regulated as we might think they are. There could be things in there that's not actually on the label. And then there's also some of our supplements we could have too much. There's a such thing as too much of a good thing as well too. And you can experience some adverse symptoms when you do kind of take too much of a nutrient. So if you're really kind of concerned about making sure you're eating enough, this is a great reason to reach out to a dietitian as well. We'll talk about later about how to do that, but always think kind of food first, because for the longest time, that's how we got through. We didn't have supplements, we didn't have vitamin C pills and this gummies and all those kind of things. So yeah, I don't know if any of my colleagues wanted to kind of jump on that one, but it's really food first, being curious what's on your plate and trying to get all the different food groups in there.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Just piggybacking on to what Jessica said in regards to supplements. Again, this is where a registered dietitian can take a peek at what you're doing in terms of your nutrition choices and what you're taking in. Definitely with certain age groups, we're more looking at vitamin B12 deficiencies as we get older, right? So I work with a lot of athletes. So a lot of my female athletes, I'm looking for iron deficiency. Once we hit menopause, you know, we're more prone to osteoporosis. We want to be looking at optimizing calcium and vitamin D. So there is a role for certain supplements, but we don't necessarily have this blanketed approach where we're like, everybody gets to be on a supplement, right? So it's really looking at each and every individual and looking at their unique needs.
And if I can add something as well, I definitely like agree with, you know, trying to include a variety of foods sort of throughout the day. One thing that I'm actually trying to move away from is that I used to recommend that like people have that like balanced plate at every meal. But what I've realized that it's not always accessible to everyone. It's not always possible. So you don't need to be perfect when it comes to eating in order to be healthy. So really just kind of trying to get that variety throughout the day, but not necessarily striving for some sort of perfection because it doesn't necessarily exist, but just kind of doing, you know, what fits for you.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for just freeing us all. Because, you know, at breakfast, you're trying to have all of your all of your food group. And I'm just like, okay, I don't have time. I can do it. So, yeah, thank you for freeing us all. We don't have to have all of the portion, on our plate, but balance. And I think that's what everybody's the message that's coming out tonight. So, this is a great segue into the next point because Tanis, I want to hear from you. So we've all heard. So we heard from Jessica, we've heard from Lalitha, we've heard from Vinci about being kind to our bodies and listening to our bodies. So what's going on with all of the diet trends? So how am I supposed to
Yes.
be listening to my body when I'm on a diet? And can you just talk to us about like what's up with that, and how do we make the best decisions based on all of what has been said so far?
Oh, that's so true, Camelia. Now that if you even go into a grocery store, not only are all the magazines telling you that you need to be on a diet and telling you which diet to be on, but even the food industry is getting into that. And one really good example of that is the keto diet. The food industry is now marketing a lot of keto products. There are whole sections now of stores that have keto products, and it looks to a consumer as if that is what we should be doing. And we actually saw in a lot of the questions the idea that people need to cut out carbs, and as Jessica pointed out, we shouldn't cut out carbs actually. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the keto diet. I've looked into it in details, looking at the evidence. And so the keto diet is in particular advocated for weight loss. And there was a really nice study published in JAMA in 2018 where they randomized over 600 people to either go on a low carb diet like a keto diet or a low fat diet for a year. And they encouraged the people for 2 months to be extremely strict with whichever diet they were allocated. And then after the 2 months to keep following the diet as closely as they could. But they did allow that following those diets really, really strictly is hard. So they did allow people to make it fit into their lives. And the interesting thing was that after a year, both groups had lost weight. The keto group had lost 6 kilos on average. The low fat diet had lost 5.3 kilos. So almost an identical weight loss in both groups. And I want to make some cautions about the keto diet that aren't made that often, and certainly not by the people who are promoting them, in the magazines and things. And that is that there is a concern about a keto diet for any pregnant women, because animal studies have shown that there are changes in brain anatomy and behavior when pregnant animals, for example, mice, are on the keto diet. And also there are 2 case reports about lactating women who developed ketoacidosis. These are women that did not have diabetes, and they were on the keto diet and developed ketoacidosis on the keto diet. So the ketoacidosis can be hazardous to health. So it looks like those are 2 groups that really shouldn't be on the keto diet. Probably one of the reasons why the keto diet keeps coming back over decades as being popular is that when people first go on the keto diet, they lose some weight quite quickly in the first week or 2. And that's actually because they're losing some water weight. It's not actually fat weight in that initial weight loss. And it's because they burned up their glycogen, and glycogen usually holds water in their muscles and in their liver. So, that is very encouraging to people to see the number on the scale go down, but they're not actually losing fat at that point. Now, I'm not saying that no one should ever follow a keto diet. Some people like it. Some people feel that that's what they want to do, and that can be okay. But I don't consider it a healthy diet. I imagine my colleagues feel the same way. And it's kind of worrying that it's being so heavily promoted these days.
Yeah, it's such a great point because just listening to a lot of voices who sometimes are not authoritative and sometimes don't tell you the whole thing or don't tell you all the details, and you just follow on this wagon sometimes can be detrimental for our health. I want to go back to the whole weight management topic or subject. So, we talked about our nutritional needs. We talked about, emotional, just our bodies and what our body needs. Is there a target weight? You know, so if I listen to my body, but I'm overweight or I'm underweight, is there such a thing? Can you talk to us a little bit, Lalita, about that whole weight, ideal weight, body image? Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
I think that's such a great question. And again, it's a relevant question because a lot of people in my practice will ask me, Lalitha, how much should I weigh? I went to the doctor and I got my BMI done, and my BMI is too high. So what's my best weight? And I think, again, if we solely focus on our weight, we're missing the big picture. It really should be about our overall health, not just our physical health, but our mental health as well. Weight is just a small piece of the puzzle. And I know as a society, we'll be all, but it really is not. Again, when we're thinking about BMI, and I just want to break this down, BMI is our body mass index, and what it is, it's our weight in relationship to our height, and it gives us a number. Now, historically, we've used that for decades. I remember as an intern, I would use BMI and I would calculate people's ideal body weight and I would give them a number, and I thought this was the number that they should be. Now, over 16 years of practice, I have moved away from that because I have recognized that an individual's best weight is something that is so unique to them. And I really want to emphasize that. So charts like BMI, they really oversimplify what your weight should be. So that's a really important point. Now, again, there's so many things that influence our weight, and I want to talk about your personal genetics. So a really great example of this is my best friend. She is 5 foot. Her shoe size is size 6. I'm 5'6", my shoe size is 9.5. So I would never force my feet into her size 6 shoes. It's just not going to happen. I was built differently. But yet as a society, we kind of force our bodies into a type that we believe is appropriate, shapes and sizes, and recognizing that that is okay. We don't have to be a particular body type or weight. Other things is our body composition as well. So again, when people hop on the scale and they're like, oh my goodness, my weight, you know, you could have more muscle, bone mass, blood, like your weight encompasses everything in your body, and everybody's body composition is different. Age and gender. So again, females, we naturally carry more body fat on us because we were meant to create children. We were meant to bear babies. Men have more of a muscular disposition. Some men and some men don't, right? Age, as we get older, our metabolism declines and we start to carry more fat. Now, research has actually shown that fat is protective. Okay, so individuals who are older, it's okay to have extra body fat because if you are struck with a disease or get ill, you have those energy reserves that you can draw on. So fat is protective. There's medical concerns, right? And conditions that can influence our weight. So thyroid conditions or even medications that can increase or decrease a person's weight. Stress can influence weight, right? There's hormonal interplay that can occur with cortisol. Lack of sleep, shift work, our nutrition, our activity levels. So I just want to kind of go through this list to show you that weight is very complex. It's very complex and it's very unique and specific to each and every individual. And so this is why working with somebody like a registered dietitian, I think, is so important because it helps to shed some light on, you know, what is going to work best for you. Because really your best weight is a weight that you can live your life healthfully and joyfully for long term. So it's not your weight fluctuating back and forth. It's establishing a weight that you're living your best life.
Wow.
I don't know if my colleagues want to add on to that.
I'd love to add on. I also like to point out too that like a lot of people, when they think like, oh, I want to lose weight, but weight's not a behavior. I can't be like, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to lose 5 pounds. It's not actually something that I can control, and neither can you. And so kind of realizing that helps people be like, oh, okay, what can I control? Let's work on that instead. It increases your motivation and just kind of takes like the pressure off, because no one can directly control their weight. It's not a behavior.
So Jessica, while you have the floor, I just wanted to ask you a follow-up question. So we said that, you know, weight, we talked about, you know, weight not having an emphasis on weight, but we have been told for many years that we need to be mindful of our calorie intake, you know. So are you challenging that as well? So if we need to let go of all of the body shaming or the body standards, you know, should we also let go of all of the ways we eat, the amount of calorie and all that? Can you just speak a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I am challenging it, really. So if you kind of think back to when we were babies, or think of your own kids, like none of them took out their calculator and started calculating how much breast milk to have or how much baby formula to eat. Like, we were born eating intuitively. We know when we're full and we know when we're hungry, and our body was very good at regulating how much we could take in. Even think of toddlers. You'll see some toddlers, they like, oh, I'm not hungry at this meal. And then like 2 days later, they're eating everything in the fridge. Like, they're very good at regulating what to take in. I think as we got into this weight loss industry, really, that's where it kind of came in, that it was like, oh, you can't trust your body anymore. You have to follow the food label. You have to track and weigh everything that you eat. And you can't trust yourself to to know what's enough. And so we've gotten away from that. A lot of us have, we've been told to finish our plate, or we have to eat this, or if you don't eat that, this will happen. And so food became like something that we felt like we couldn't control ourselves around. And so intuitive eating is something I think a lot of registered dietitians are coming back to, showing us like, yes, you can listen to your body, and your body is already knows how to do that. We just have to learn how to listen to it again. But that said, it is okay if you do want to track. There are lots of people who want to track macros and track calories, but you need to kind of take a step back and think about why. You want to make sure you're doing it in a neutral way. So maybe you're just ensuring, like for an athlete, for example, that you're eating enough. I find that a lot of athletes want to make sure they're eating enough for their sport. And so they do kind of keep an eye on what they're eating, their calories or macronutrients, to make sure that they're fueling their body properly for the sport that they're doing. Some people track it for other reasons, to most namely that I hear of, to lose weight. And so they kind of use that number as like a maximum. And then there can get to be a little bit of a mental, I don't know what the right word is, but you trust the number so much, and you can't trust yourself. And so I guess there's a balance between what the goal is. And so definitely I feel like we don't need to track at all, but if you do want to track, there are certain reasons why I would support someone to track their calories. And just even from an education side of things, there's lots of people are curious that are like, oh, I had no idea that this was a food that was high in protein, or this was a food high in but B12, for example. And so tracking can kind of help you with education, as long as you're coming from it with a neutral aspect. And a dietitian can help you kind of calculate out numbers if that's something for you. But really, I think most dietitians, at least I do, try and focus on the intuitive eating a little bit. No, I know Vinci does for sure. And that's kind of, it's just going back to our roots, going back to how we used to eat as toddlers and as babies. We know how to do it. We just got away from it a bit.
I'd like to add something. I really like what you said, Jessica, but I'd like to add that there actually is a benefit for some people to track what they're eating, and not so much to take it down and calculate it into even macros, but just research has shown that if people just write down what they've eaten, then they become more aware that they've eaten. Because have you ever heard anybody say, oh, I haven't eaten all day, I don't eat and I gain weight? And perhaps they aren't really registering what they're eating. And so it can be helpful just to record what you're eating, like one orange, one sandwich, it doesn't have to be all divided down into the constituents, but just as an awareness tool. And there were a couple people that asked about the Noom app, and I looked it up, and there is some evidence that it's helpful for some people. And I think it's, I agree with Jessica that it can be too much of taking the responsibility of enjoying food and eating food for its satiety and letting the app run the show. But there is some evidence that it is helpful for some people. So just like everything else we're talking about tonight, there are lots of ways to approach these things, and lots of things that can help. And you need to figure out what is helpful for you in your situation.
Can I just add on to that really quickly? Since we're on Noom, it's one of those things that's just popping up on my feed, like on Twitter and Facebook. It's pretty incessant, and I get a lot of questions about Noom. And I think part of their advertising is this awareness and the psychology. But one thing that I think is disappointing from my perspective is the advertisements are always like, I lost 26 pounds. I lost 72 pounds using Noom. And I think, again, the impetus behind Noom is still that weight loss. So if any of you find that triggering, if you're wanting to move towards more of that health and wellness versus just the weight loss, it may not be the app for you.
Yeah, and I signed up for it to see what it was, and I put in a weight and a goal weight of 3 pounds less, just because I'm a woman, and and then it started messaging me about how quickly I could get there, and I didn't like that pressure from a professional perspective. I agree with Lalitha. I think that's it really worried me, actually. So, but you know, there is evidence it works for some people. So it's not all good. It's not all bad. But I think the problem is that a lot of these topics, people tell you what you should do, and the advice doesn't always work for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, this is so important because one size doesn't fit all, and it's all about your lifestyle, your body, your culture, and trying to make the best adjustments for you and your lifestyle and your goals. And all of you are talking about awareness, being aware of what you eat. If counting your calories can help, for sure, go ahead. But don't feel that this is the only way to eat well and eat healthier. I want to hear from Vinci about this whole listening to your body and making good choices. So, what can you tell somebody who says, "My body craves sugar, my body craves, sweet. Should I be listening to my body if that's what my body wants?"
Oh, that's a really
And
good
treats and bad,
question.
not bad food, but greasy food. Should I be listening to my body?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is what I hear all the time, kind of like, well, if I listen to my body, then I would just eat candy all the time, or like you said, like greasy food or donuts or whatever it might be. And in some sense, it's true because like it that is a lot of people's experience initially. But in intuitive eating, since Jessica already kind of introduced that term, there's this idea called habituation. So habituation is basically like about taking that emotional charge away from certain foods. So when we, just kind of feel like having a certain food all the time, usually there's some sort of restriction or deprivation behind that desire. So it could be physical restriction in the sense of like, this is a food that you just like don't allow yourself to eat. So you actually don't eat that food all the time. And so that like when you have it, it's like subconsciously you're thinking, oh my God, like, this is the only time I'm going to get it. Like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop to like, not be able to get access to this food anymore. And so it's like sort of physical, but like it's also a mental restriction as well, because even though you're actually eating the food, you're telling yourself that you can't have it, or you're telling yourself that it's a bad thing to have it. So, so sort of like the wild theory that I kind of introduced to folks is this idea of giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. And like, again, there's that initial, oh my God, if I do that, then wouldn't I just eat chocolate and donuts all the time? And it's like, yeah, maybe you will for the first little bit, but eventually when you're trusting your body and your body trusts that you actually have unconditional permission, that you can actually eat as much as you want, whenever you want, then it stops being as exciting. And so another analogy that I sometimes use, and I stole this from Evelyn Tribole, who's one of the co-authors of Intuitive Eating, she's a dietitian based in the US, is I call it the I love you analogy. So think of like, if you have a partner or if you've had a romantic partner before, think of like the first time that you said, I love you to them, right? Like you probably had to think of like the right moment and like, like, do they love me back? And, like, are they going to say I love you back? And there was probably a big buildup to that I love you. And even the first few times that you say I love you after that, maybe it feels a little bit weird because it's like you're in a new stage of your relationship. But then over time, especially if you're married for a long time now, if you've been with your partner for a long time now, a lot of the times, like even today, like with my husband, I was like, oh, I love you. I'm going to go up and, join this fireside chat, or your hang up, and it's becomes very casual. And so, I don't love my husband any less. So it's not about, eating so much of the food that you get sick of it, but it's just about taking away that emotional charge. And I know it's easier said than done, but that is part of like getting the support of a dietitian who does this work, so that, maybe you can do it in a sort of systematic, structured way, like trying it with 1 or 2 foods at a time, as opposed to kind of that overwhelming feeling of like unconditional permission to eat. I'm going to eat everything under the sun. Like, it's not about that, but, kind of getting that support and doing it in a systematic way, if that is what's most helpful to you.
I love that analogy.
Can I just add on to that too?
Yes,
And I
please.
love everything that you said, and I love that analogy, Vinci. But one thing that I think is also powerful to remember too is food is just food. Like, there's no good food and there's no bad food, because when we start classifying foods as this is good and this is bad, suddenly we're placing this morality on food. And if we eat this good food, we're good. If we eat this bad food, we're bad. And what I love about what you said is you're just diffusing it. You're taking away that emotional charge. Food is just food. It's there if we want to eat it. And if we don't want to eat it, we don't have to.
Wow, I'm gonna use that phrase whenever somebody tries to shame me about what I'm eating. I say food is food. There's no bad food. I'll definitely use that, Lalita. So yeah, I'm really happy that we're talking about the value and the morality that we have attached to food. So when it comes to diets, I just want to go back to it, because we talk about oh, I'm on this, okay, not maybe not the keto diet, but I'm on the Mediterranean diet, or I'm on this diet, I'm a low fat diet, I'm on no fat diet, and we use it to brag to our friends and to say we are doing a good thing for our own bodies and things like that. So when it comes to that whole management of our healthy lifestyle and heart health, what do you guys have to say about all that? Do we should we are diet important? Are they valuable? What are the best ways to manage our diet if we choose to have one? In terms of budget, in terms of just controlling what we eat, awareness, and all that. And I can. So Jessica, can you go on that question? What do you think?
Sure. So definitely kind of the first thing as well too is like when you're trying to think about what you're eating in a diet, like even to us dietitians, like we have diet in our name, but diet kind of has like almost a negative association with it too. And you'll see a lot of people will say I'm an anti-diet dietitian or a non-diet dietitian. And because even for me, if I hear diet, I automatically think restriction. And so we're trying to kind of move away from that too. It's just like we're trying to do the neutral term, like just think about your nutrition, just think about what you're eating. It's kind of more neutral terms as well too. And we've kind of touched on it already for like a lot of things. I think a lot of people focus on what to eat and how much, and it's like, why don't we focus on how we're eating? Why don't we focus on being curious about what's on our plate? Why don't we focus on whether we're eating with our loved ones? Or are we eating in front of the TV? Are we rushing to eat while we're at work and not really thinking, and we're just kind of eating food as quickly as we can? And so kind of a good way that I try and work with people too is like, yes, we all know how to eat healthier. You can add more veggies, or you can add more like beans or lentils, and everybody knows that kind of stuff already. And so I find that what's most beneficial to people is actually focusing on how you're eating. And especially in North America, we're a society that's just like, we have 30-minute lunches and we like chew twice and swallow once, so we don't really take the time to like really enjoy our food. We've talked about this before, that food is pleasurable. And so kind of like, that's where I encourage people to think about when they're like, oh, I want to start eating better. Maybe instead of thinking about like a diet to go on, maybe think about like how you can eat a little bit more, chew your food a little bit more thoroughly. What kind of textures are you experiencing? Your smell, your flavors. really kind of getting that maximal satisfaction out of food can really help us not only enjoy the food a bit better, but some research, and maybe Tanis have heard about this too, but some research shows that if we actually like mindfully eat a bit better, we actually absorb the nutrients better. We give our body a chance to rest and digest instead of just eating and rushing off to the next thing to do. So that's kind of one thing that I tend to work on, and I'm open to hearing what my colleagues would do too, but it's just focusing on how we're eating and trying to slow down and actually enjoy our food and thoroughly chew it, enjoy the texture, enjoy the flavor, enjoy the smell, and just really get the maximal pleasure out of food.
I think to piggyback on that, you mentioned the absorption, but there's the satisfaction element, right? So when you slow down, maybe you take the time to prepare a meal and it's pleasurable, you feel satisfied, right? And there's maybe not this desire for other things that are maybe less intentional later on in the day.
Yeah, that's so good. So we are close to the end here, and I want to hear your last thoughts about food and nutrition. So we at the Living Cardiovascular Institute, and we focus on people's health, and we focus on heart health. So we heard about comments about there's no bad or good food. You need to listen to your body. You need to be aware of what you're eating. You need to be aware of how you're eating. So when it comes to heart health, what can you tell people about eating and eating well, for the heart to be their best, in terms of energy, in terms of discipline, in terms of all of the needs that we have. What are your last thoughts around that subject? And we can start with Tanis.
Okay, great. Thanks, Camelia. So actually, I totally agree with what Jessica said about diets. And I almost didn't become a dietitian because I didn't like the name dietitian. And because of the connotations with the word. But your diet is also everything you eat. And it's, as Jessica said, it has become to mean restrictions, but it also means any healthy diet, as I'm sure you all know, but we usually think of it in that negative connotation. And there is one diet that is well studied and has positive outcomes in terms of heart health, as well as in weight control, and that's the Mediterranean diet. There were a couple questions that came in about the Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet is nothing unusual. The wonderful thing about the Mediterranean diet, I think, which all dietitians would agree, is it includes a whole variety of foods. It does have an emphasis on vegetables and fruit, but it includes meat and fish, and it includes carbohydrate foods as well, especially whole grains. It also includes fats with an emphasis on some of the fats with polyunsaturates in them. And it's been well established now by many randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews of them that polyunsaturated fats lower blood cholesterol, which is associated with better heart health. And the oils that are the best for that are actually, canola has the best ratio of N3 to N6. I know we get advertised to us constantly that we need to take supplements for our different fatty acids, but actually using canola oil in your cooking is a really good way to do that. Olive is also good. It doesn't have quite as good a ratio, but it has antioxidants and a nice flavor. So, and also the Mediterranean diet includes dairy, and currently it seems that dairy keeps getting a really bad rap. I don't know where it came from that dairy foods are actually associated with better weight control, probably because of their protein content. They're usually considered and known for their calcium content, but they're actually considerably high in protein as well. So the Mediterranean diet is one diet that I would endorse, and actually Canada's Food Guide is actually pretty representative of the Mediterranean diet as well. Does anyone want to add anything?
So yeah, I would like to hear from all of you. Vinci, what do you have to say about this topic and intuitive eating? Around intuitive eating and heart health.
Yeah, so I think when there's so many things in our life that are outside of our control, it's we very much want to try to grasp at whatever we have control over. And I think for a lot of people, like food is one of those things that we feel like we have a lot of control over, and in turn sort of the messaging around like food and its impact on our health. And I absolutely agree. And I would say nutrition isn't the be all end all. I know that's a weird thing to hear from a dietitian, but when we think about the contributing factors to our health, like social determinants of health actually have a grow. And so yes, when I work with clients one-on-one, it is talking about what they can control. But I also, want I think part of the work that I do with clients as well is also keeping in mind sort of the stuff that is out of their control, and having compassion for themselves that, they can't control everything. There are some people who eat quote unquote perfectly and follow the Mediterranean diet to a T, and maybe they still have a heart event. Or there are some people who, would have what we might think of as a poor diet, and, all their numbers are perfectly healthy. And so I think the work that I do with clients is really about doing the best that you can, given the resources that you have. That's really what self-care is.
I totally agree with that, Vinci. And just kind of to add on to that as well too, is really looking kind of, like she said, like not aiming for perfection, because there are things that are out of your control that may influence it, genetics being one of them. So you may be eating the best that you can, but you just have a very strong history of various heart conditions, and there's nothing that we can do beyond what we can control. And so it is about compassion, doing the best you can, but not aiming for perfection, trying to just do what you can with what you have available. And then I think the key point I want to highlight is reaching out for help. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get support. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about reaching out to dietitians. I know Libin has another chat about exercise specialists as well too. So there's a vast variety of different health professionals that are eager and excited to help you. And all you have to do is ask and kind of lend out your hand to get that support that you might need. And don't feel like you have to figure it out on yourself, because you'll feel better, and you'll have that kind of motivation if you do have someone kind of helping you out along the way.
Yeah, and I would echo those sentiments. Throughout my practice over the years, one thing that I've really realized is nutrition is very personal. And I always feel honored when people share with me their nutrition and their health. And it's an honor for me to help individuals on their journey, because it is a journey. And so it's finding that health professional that's going to be the best fit for you as well, because it can be very emotional. It can be very on the entire spectrum. So it can be happiness, it can be sadness when it comes to nutrition. So it's definitely finding the best fit for your needs, which is why many dietitians within Alberta, if you're seeking a private practice dietitian will offer a complimentary 20-minute discovery phone call. So there are options there for you to connect with somebody.
Definitely. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much to all of you for your incredible wisdom, and thank you for freeing so many people tonight on misconceptions and ideas that we have about our bodies, the way we eat, what we should be eating, and really empowering us to make the best decisions for our life style and our life stage. We talked about life stage, being young, being old, depending of where you are. So please reach out. We want to make sure that you have the support that you need. Dietitian Canada is a great website, a great resource where you can learn a lot about about just food and nutrition in general, and also connect with a dietitian. So here are the contact information of our dietitian tonight, so you can reach them on their website directly. And also, so they have offered to do a 20-minute consultation discovery call. So as we said, it's a journey, but if you need to talk to somebody about, what you're eating and want some help, please reach out. There will be a contact information at the end of the evaluation survey. So you can submit your contact information and we'll make sure that somebody gets to reach out to you and help you out with some of your questions, because we had so many questions. We couldn't go through all of them, and we wanted to make the best the best use of your time tonight. So reach out. That's our message tonight. This is a resource page, again, Dietitian Canada. You can directly find a dietitian in your region that you can work with on the dietitiandirectory.ca. There's a lot of resources out there. So connect with people, and we'll be happy to facilitate some of those relationships and contacts as the best of our abilities. And as always, join us at one of our future events and learn about the Libin Cardiovascular Institute and our other initiatives such as the Libin Moves initiative. So on that note, I would like to thank you all for attending this great event. The recording will be made available on our website so you can share with family and friends, and and learn together and free somebody else in the wake. So thank you again for a wonderful evening, and I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. Thank you again, and have a great night. And yeah. I don't know if anybody has anything else to say, but on my end, this is all. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hope everyone has a good night.
Yes,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. You're welcome. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Okay, I'm going to end this, but thank you so much, all of you. It was wonderful to have you all. Thank you.